think at that time, Khalyla and Annie Letterman were like dogpiling on him, and I just thought that was gross as Earl of like, you're trying to like Me Too this guy essentially. And guess what? Joe Rogan agrees. I can't say that I know how I know this, but it's like, yeah. Do you think you'll see Annie Letterman on Joe Rogan anytime soon?
Probably not.
I know for a fact.
Yeah.
Who is Mark Harley, and why is he exposing everything from Bryan Callen's Fighter and the Kid's salary, the 300 pages of evidence Brendan has against Tigerbelly, and even going as far to say he knows certain people are banned for life from the Joe Rogan Experience? Also, Brendan pees in the sink in front of his employees. What the f? If you're watching this video, then you are fully aware of the Tigerbelly Brendan Schaub drama. If you're not, then I highly suggest you watch my previous video on Brendan, the man that killed comedy. It covers Brendan's career from his time at Colorado University, through his time with UFC, and ultimately the Tigerbelly drama, ending with Theo leaving the King and the Sting. Things have been somewhat quiet for Brendan since all of this drama, but once again he has managed to provide the homeless cats with even more ammo. His former assistant Mark Harley had a podcast on the Thick Boy YouTube channel called Haters Will Say. Ironic, because he is now the hater. It started with Harley taking shots at Brendan on Instagram. The Instagram post asked Harley if they made the announcement on the Fighter and the Kid. Harley replied, "No, I guess I'm not worthy of an explanation." Harley laughed at another comment that said, "I was hoping you would replace Schaub when his liver inevitably failed." Prior to Harley no longer working for Brendan, he was always taking Brendan's side. He may have even gone a little too far during the whole Tigerbelly drama.
I'm starting to see screenshots on Instagram of DMs of your cute little friend Mark confirming that you wanted to expose me. Is that correct?
I didn't see them.
I know,
you
but
would know.
I talked to you about Mark, and you confirmed
I-
it with him.
Well, no, I went to Mark and said, dude, you're making things way worse from
Okay.
Because he's trying to defend me. I went, you're not defending me. You're making it
Got it.
worse, giving her fuel, and me and her are talking. You don't need to do this.
Brendan said he told Harley to lay off Khalyla, but a few months after, he linked a short video to his Instagram about Khalyla being exposed. Harley's podcast is nothing to write home about. 10,000 views isn't sustainable, and it didn't seem like he was doing a whole lot for Thick Boy. He can't really give a detailed description of his duties or even a title. He mentions that the last straw before he was let go involved him missing work.
I got fired actually because I couldn't come in on a Monday for Schaub Show. Now, come to find out later that Brendan had actually taken me off the payroll for Thick Boy, like after our last disagreement. I didn't realize it at the time, but he wasn't paying me to be there for the Schaub Show, in which I take pictures, I annotate quotes during the show. I kind of just help, produce the show in a minor, like a PA, I guess.
Sure.
But, I'm just there. I'm one of the hands on deck.
I'm just
going, let's
watching.
get these quote cards out as soon as possible. I write the episode description. I write the title. Sometimes I do the thumbnails, stuff like that.
Minus a very good reason for missing work on a Monday, most Americans would be let go. Being let go isn't an excuse to do a tell-all on your former employer. But Harley didn't hold back when talking to Red
I had
Bar.
a few dust-ups before, and kind of the general theme of this would be if I corrected him on anything, it'd be an issue. We had an
Really?
argument where I almost got fired because he was trying to tell me that, engagement was too low on his Instagram page. And an audit. And he goes, there's only 0.3% engagement. You guys need to reply to more comments.
Oh
and I
my
go,
God.
I think that engagement means replying to comments. And he goes, yes. And I go, that's not what it means. He goes, yes, it is. And we kind of have this argument where I have to explain to him, engagement means likes, comments, saves, shares. And, there's a lot more going on there. I've been trying to figure out your Instagram for months now. And I don't know exactly what's going on to it, but the non-follower reach is limited. I'm looking at, I'm trying to solve this problem for months. And then suddenly this other person comes along and it's like, has the answer, right?
No, this is crazy. First of all, he shouldn't be worried about engagement. This engagement thing is a bunch of crap. I mean, he started getting aggravated with you because his Instagram engagement wasn't what he expected it to
Mark
be.
Harley talked
Is that what I'm hearing?
It's fascinating to know that behind the scenes, Brendan thinks Instagram and engagement is what's going to get his numbers up. He's at the point of the movie where Jack and Rose know their but he thinks Instagram engagement is going to save him.
A lot of criticism without a standard. You know what I mean? So you can criticize.
Of course.
Hey, you're supposed to do this, but there was a lot of incidents. There were several incidents that were kind of mimicked this, that were like inventing a standard the day after. Why didn't you get this thing that I didn't ask for the day after? And you can take that for a while, but then when you push back on it and it escalates and you have to correct somebody, choose to correct it. And this is just, I'll put out more info about this because I'm interested in just I'll let people read these exchanges and decide for themselves. But that was one example of like, then we're on the group chat with this IG guru, like, because he deflected,
Wow.
like, I'm going, no, the definition of the word you're using is wrong. We go to a group chat with the IG guru. He told me I made her cry because I was asking questions like, hey, like I was just, being, in my opinion, diplomatic, but sort of a little bit direct, and just going, hey, so what's up with this? You said you fixed the shadow ban, but what I'm seeing on his page is that you got more engagement on this post because you collabed with some.
From what Harley is saying, it seems like everything is falling apart. Brendan hires an Instagram strategist, waste of money, so his assistant or handler or producer, whatever Harley is, makes her cry. Not only are the decisions Brendan makes bad, but the people he surrounds himself with are bad at their jobs.
I mean, why is that something he's even concerned with? Is it because, I have a suspicion, is it because the views have been going down on these shows that they're hosting?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of panic around that. And look, Mike, my concern, if I ever post something and it doesn't get the engagement that I want, I go, maybe my content sucks. Can I do better? Can I be funnier? Can I post a better picture? Can I post a better caption? Question of, are the fans happy with the show? And I think in this instance, the old adage of don't read the comments because there's nothing useful. And Brendan will I've heard Brendan say, no hater in the comment has ever given me a tag to a joke. But it's not about actually getting a joke from the comments. It's about taking the temperature of the room, right?
Sure.
And if 90% of the people in the comment section say, you constantly interrupt, you're very rude to people, you're arrogant, you cut people off. Like, even when I appeared on The Fighter and the Kid, I came on like 5 times as a guest before I was in the room for each episode. And from the get-go, he kind of brought me on. Like, the first time I came on, they wanted to talk a lot about, weightlifting and nutrients and anabolics and all that. And I'm an open book with regards to that stuff, but some of it is more scientific. And I'm not going to talk about steroids without being very precise, require complex answers. And I just felt like I couldn't open my mouth without being cut off 4 seconds later. And that's the experience of nearly every guest. And I think people catch on, because if you were to graph the viewership or whatever, people get over time. You'll see one by one. I tried. I can't take it anymore. And that's why it's, the lesson for me is always be in touch with the people who butter your bread. These people are the people who drive your show.
It sounds like Harley truly understands the problems Brendan has. And if he was relaying that information to Brendan and nothing was being done, then it's understandable for Harley to hold resentment. But it sounds like Brendan doesn't want to listen to anybody. After all, the resounding majority of comments are from haters, so if there ever was an actual fan trying to give constructive criticism, it's understandable to think from Brendan's point of view that they are too just haters.
When did you learn about this firing? How quick was it?
What actually was an example of like a sort of little dust up that happened before, but there was a series of these little things where I'd kind of push back and stand up for myself. And generally speaking, like, I wouldn't be speaking on this if it was like, if I felt like I was the only person who ever experienced this, but know that if I say something, it's probably indicative of a general pattern of, if you see people leaving, it might be because of the way that their boss is treating them, and it's less than respectful. And I've listed off, we've had discussions before where I go, hey man, I feel like you're disrespecting me. And he goes, well, how so? And I'll list off like 10 things. And then he goes, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I'm like, no, it's not about being sorry I want you to regret. Is this indicative of you not liking me or thinking I'm a bad employee or what? Like, because you would pair things like that, I love you, but, and then shit on me. And I'm like, let's get to the bottom of this. What is your actual perception of me? Because I feel like you're subverting me.
And this is with you and Brendan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, to Bryan's credit, Bryan was very, very supportive of me. And I felt like he actually went out of his way to like try and understand me as a person.
During the interview, Red Bar asked about Bryan Callen and Chris D'Elia, but Harley only has good things to say about them, saying they were nice guys and that he got along with them just fine. But when it comes to Brendan, he can't hold back, especially when it comes to the 300 pages of evidence Brendan claimed to have. Harley confirms that Brendan either never saw the evidence, or there was evidence and he just didn't understand what he was looking at.
Do you know how Reddit works?
A lot of people on the internet think that Harley may have been the one in charge of, or at least had a hand in, the whole 300-page debacle, which is why he is no longer working for Brendan.
300 pages of files. What was that all about?
Well, I would describe that broadly as like if you had a choose your own adventure and like at each step there was like just the worst possible step you could take, it's like, and you could either, go in the door or you could stick your hand in the wood chipper. It's like, I'm going to stick my hand in the wood chip. The main question I think that people have is like, is this 300 pages of evidence real?
Yeah. Is it?
Has Brendan seen 300 pages of evidence? I think he may have been told by that, but or told about that. And I'll just try to be specific here, because the speculation is that none of this ever happened, right? Or like that it was a complete fabrication.
Sure.
Right? It's not a complete fabrication in the sense that I believe he believed that he had this information that Bobby was somehow connected to the subreddit.
Sure.
Let's just say, in a theoretical world, I don't know, maybe if you were looking to get a subreddit taken down,
holy shit,
maybe you might hire some unsavory people. Maybe those unsavory people, in this theoretical scenario, are scamming you. Maybe they're real, but maybe they're scamming you. Maybe they're passing on information to you as a rube who doesn't know anything about computers, claiming that they're making progress in taking a website down that you, in this theoretical scenario.
So you never saw 300 pages of documents. You never saw him carrying a big book of
I never saw it, and he never saw it, but was passing it on as if he had, because
wow.
Now, do I believe he was told something to that effect? Yes. Do I think that Brendan's easy to take advantage of because of his naivete and unwillingness to sort of look into and confront the factual reality of certain scenarios? Yes. So now let's take it to that step where you go, okay, if I came to you and said, Red Bar, we have evidence that, Mark Harley is running this hate group online against you. What you might do, if you actually believe that, is say, store that information in my back pocket.
Sure.
It could be true, it could not be true, but I'm just going to sort of suss it out.
So he just heard about that 300 pages. He never really saw it, and then he just used it when he needed to kind of explain.
Correct.
Wow.
That's part of this pattern.
Following this interview with Red Bar, Harley went to the Fighter and the Kid subreddit, posting screenshots of messages between him and Brendan. Brendan said, "Hey brother, I don't like the way things went down between us. You're a great friend to me. Working together makes it tough. Let's meet in person. You should be proud of yourself." Harley replied, "So should you." Brendan said, "You were my friend, man." Harley said, "You weren't mine." Brendan said, "Maybe I didn't handle certain things right as a boss, but to go on a podcast, for what?" Harley said, "You treat people like." Then it digresses into this. In the comments of those screenshots, Harley posted, "Dude owes me $15K. Let's see if he pays up or has to escalate, because this woe is me, I'm just a friend BS has me actually off." Harley didn't stop there. He went on another podcast a few days later, continuing his onslaught of Brendan, and even dropped Joe Rogan's name, saying he knows that certain people, because of the Tigerbelly drama, would never be back on the Joe Rogan Experience.
I think at that time, Khalyla and Annie Letterman were like dogpiling on him, and I just thought that was gross as in general, of like, you're trying to like Me Too this guy essentially. And guess what? Joe Rogan agrees. I can't say that I know how I know this, but it's like, yeah. Do you think you'll see Annie Letterman on Joe Rogan anytime soon?
Probably not.
I know for a fact.
If this is true, then it's a big hit to Annie's career. Comedians and podcasters have talked about the spike they get in their notoriety when they appear on JRE. So it appears that Annie is truly paying for what she said about Brendan.
You should walk me to my truck. I'm like,
I doubt Brendan has the pull or audacity to ask Joe to ban Annie from JRE. It was either that or Joe made the call on his own. He has always had Brendan's back.
If I didn't love you, I would have never said none of the shit that I said.
The most likely case is that Joe just likes to avoid drama. He has the biggest podcast on the planet, and there are over 200 million reasons he would want to steer way clear of this D-level controversy. Especially when it comes to Khalyla, as Joe has repeatedly said he loves Bobby Lee.
Very sadistic to Bobby. You can find compilations of her attempting to humiliate him.
Yes.
I actually noticed it.
I've seen him.
Yeah. When they came out on the H3 podcast, that was really, I'm sitting there watching it going, look at the way that she emotionally steamrolls over Bobby. He's saying, I'm uncomfortable doing something. Please stop doing this. And she goes,
Right.
no, don't be a Bobby. And I'm like,
Right.
that's classic abusive, manipulative behavior. She's remorseless. I don't think she empathizes with people in a traditional way. I think she has enough emotional intelligence to like pretend and pay lip service to. She'll go, in therapy, we were talking about how we have to I'm like, shut the up. Like, you make me fucking sick. And I hope that she watches this because, you know, it's always like this, like, oh, one of the things that we consider when I'm in the Philippines and I came back and Hawaii. And also, I'm definitely not a psychopath if I talk calmly, Brendan. And then when we're on a private conversation, I'm going to scream at you. But, you know, let's just forget that. While I'm on camera, I'm going to seem calm and logical. And then I'm also going to call you a fucking piece of loser at the top of my lungs on a and say, you know what? Hey, let's just put this... Right? Because, like, you can imagine that, right? I'm not painting anything that's crazy.
No, and
this is that person. She's a sadistic, narcissistic psychopath.
She seems kind of scary. If you had to die,
she is, and there's not just my opinion. Look at her track record. Look at the poetry that people have unearthed online.
I saw that.
She is somebody who, over the course of decades, has not only lied, right? Hey, guess what, Khalyla? You're not the swimmer you said you were. You didn't have a D1 scholarship. You weren't a nurse. All these things that you start to realize when you're dealing with people who have personality disorders, they lie about everything. Yes, you are a liar. You did not do the things that you said you have done, right? And that's always. Anytime you meet a dark triad personality, sociopath, Machiavellian, narcissist, look at what they say they've done. There's always going to be an exaggeration.
Despite Brendan taking the brunt of all the Tigerbelly drama, it seems that Khalyla is going to take the biggest hit. She's been exposed just as much, if not more, than Brendan. At the start of all of this, Trash Tuesday saw a bump in views, and the Tigerbelly episode with Brendan is turning into one of their most watched uploads. But now views on Trash Tuesday and Tigerbelly have taken a huge hit.
Brendan's one of these guys where I think people will take a lot of stuff he says out of context and be like, he's an or he's this, or like, you know, because also I think he's pretty good at podcasting, which you're incentivized to, like, he's going to argue with people or kind of be a dick to Bryan. And that's part of the, you know, whatever. That conversation is separate from, is this a dude who's trying his best to, you know, provide for his family and treat the people around him with respect? Yeah, 100%. And like, if you think otherwise, like, you know, it got misinterpreted in a lot of ways. Like, what I would have handled it obviously a very different way. If you put this information in my lap and I believed the person who was giving it to me, I would have dealt with it differently. But that does not mean that there's any sort of malice on his end towards, I mean, even Khalyla, you know what I mean? Because I think he was just like, you know, I don't think he realized, like, you know, what she was capable of doing in response, you know, to some of these insinuations. Because at the time, it just happened to overlap with this thing where, like, they're talking shit about him, and then, you know, it was like, that's what most people don't realize, like, these two separate timelines of, like, the Trash Tuesday girls are, like, talking shit about me, and then independently, like, somebody presented me with this information that I have to deal with. You know, it's one of the all-time great, like, coincidences, I guess.
Right.
But
this interview must have come before Harley was laid off, because he doesn't really have anything bad to say about Brendan, rather commends him for his podcasting abilities. But now he has completely turned on Brendan, saying Brendan treats him and everyone he works with like garbage. Harley could just be saying all of this to get attention, riding the wave of Schaub hate as far as he can, while he can. Since his first tell-all with Red Bar, Harley has stepped up the hate, exposing Brendan on the Fighter and the Kids subreddit during an AMA session. One commenter asking who Brenda makes clean up his nicotine pouches that he drops on the ground while on camera. Harley responds, the cleaning staff at night, unfortunately. He thinks it's his mother-in-law, though, since they all look the same to him. Another commenter asks about Brendan's relationship with Joe now that Joe has moved to Texas. Harley responds, he's seemingly very bitter about the Rogan crew out there. He dismisses all of them as hangers-on and say, I don't want that life. Talks about Rogan a lot, says he's a rattlesnake, hot and cold. He makes it seem like he never wanted to move, but I also heard his wife said F that and subsequently called him a narcissist. Another question asked about Callen and when he went on the Legion of Skanks. Harley said that was so dramatic and Brendan was freaking out trying to get Callen not to go on the show. Another question asked how Brendan was after going on Schultz's podcast and getting called out for Gringo Papi. Harley says Brendan felt ambushed and he sees himself as different because he doesn't do drama podcasting and felt like Schultz betrayed him. And the best question and response involves Brendan urinating in the sink at his work. Mark says Brendan urinates in the sink at Thick Boy Studio in front of everyone, and the creative director asked him very politely to stop. So Brendan said, "Sure thing," and kept doing it.